I saw an article. There's all kinds of headlines about, build up to next football season. And NFL.com says the 10 most complete football teams are, and they list them. They list San Francisco as the most complete football team. And I think many people feel that the Niners are the biggest obstacle in the NFC. They're the team that won the NFC a year ago. That's the biggest threat for the Lions. And I disagree. The more I've thought about it, I actually think the biggest threat for the Detroit Lions are east of that. All the way out the East Coast. The Philadelphia Eagles.
I think everybody's east of San Francisco, so you're narrowing it down to 31.
That's why I said all the way out of the east to the Philadelphia Eagles.
One of 31 teams.
I love this John Jansen. He is he's not letting anything slide.
Not today.
It's fine.
I'm going down swinging.
I know you are. To me, it's the Eagles. And let me just give it. Here's the deal. They have the better O-line between the two teams, even without Jason Kelce. You give me that?
Yes.
Okay.
They don't have,
I know they don't have Trent Williams, but they have Mailata, who you respect.
Yes.
They paid Dickerson, one of their big guards. They have the better offensive line. His name is Dickerson. It's not that funny. They have a really good offensive line. Arguably, only the Lions are better. So you have a contemporary up front on the offensive line. Jalen Hurts, to me, is the best quarterback in the NFC. What he did in that Super Bowl going toe-to-toe with Mahomes, I think he's better than Purdy and cover your ears, better than Goff. That is a real threat if they get things right. They were in the Super Bowl in 22.
And then what happened last year? They fell apart.
That's why I think people were sleeping on them. The roster is still really good. Howie Roseman continues to overhaul their defense. I think their D-line may have closed the gap with the Niners, who lost Eric Armstead. My point is they're very good in the trenches. They have a dangerous mobile quarterback, and their schedule sets up where they play the NFC South. They get the Cowboys, but they also get the Giants twice, and they get the Commanders twice. There's a scenario where they get home field, and I think it's much tougher to go to Philadelphia than it is to go to San Francisco. The weather in San Francisco is not going to be nearly as harsh as if you have to go outdoors in Philadelphia at their place late in the season. So I think the Eagles are actually the bigger threat. Maybe people don't realize it.
I disagree. I think it's still San Francisco. But until they're dethroned, I'm going to stay with San Francisco. And I mean, they dethroned, not head-to-head last year, the Eagles during the playoffs, because the Eagles completely fell apart at the end of the year. And why did they fall apart? We don't really know the answer to that question, but one of their leaders, Jason Kelce, is no longer there. So there's going to be a leadership void in a team that clearly showed leadership void. What is your quarterback supposed to do? He's supposed to be a guy that unifies both sides of the ball, not just the offense. He needs to be that type of person. And do I think Brock Purdy is that? I don't really, but I don't know. Maybe it's Christian McCaffrey. Maybe it's Trent Williams for San Francisco. But the one thing that I do think separates when you talk about in totality, not just offense, not just defense, not just special teams, it's Kyle Shanahan. And he has not been able to get over the hump of winning a Super Bowl, which is a knock on him, but he is a guy that gets there repeatedly, puts his team in position to be there repeatedly. Probably the only reason he wasn't there 2 years ago was because they just ran out of quarterbacks. And they found a way with Mr. Irrelevant to come in and put them in position. Now, he ended up getting hurt coming back, and Christian McCaffrey was trying to throw a couple of balls, but that's why they didn't make it, and Philly did. So I'm not going to sit there and say, well, Philly is this great obstacle to overcome. I think it's still San Francisco. It's Christian McCaffrey. It's Deebo Samuel. It's Jawan Jennings, George Kittle, and Brandon Ayuk. And people could say right now, it is May, and Christian McCaffrey was not at OTAs. Well, Christian McCaffrey's not at OTAs because he's planning for his wedding that I think he's pretty sure that a lot of people are going to come to. And Brandon Ayuk is in the middle of a contract dispute, but it doesn't feel like it's one where both sides are arming up and they're trying to throw jabs at each other. It's one that most people believe will get done.
Okay, A.J. Brown better than any receiver in San Francisco? No disrespect to Ayuk.
As a receiver, yes.
Yes, sure.
As a weapon, I don't know. I might put Deebo Samuel up there as well.
Okay, fair. I mean, Devontae Smith, too. I mean, even if we call it a push. McCaffrey better than Barkley, but Barkley may be the biggest contemporary. Gibbs, too. I know.
Yeah,
the NFC's got really good running backs.
So both of those guys, it's about injury. And Christian McCaffrey has proven last year, and really the last 2 years, that he's he's been able to overcome the injury label that he had when he was at Carolina. And Saquon Barkley, what's his big moment?
Yeah. My point is I think Philly's skill positions are nothing to sleep on. I think they have the better O-line, the more dangerous quarterback. And here's the trump card in all of this. Patricia's not coordinating their defense anymore.
Okay, but when you're looking at the defense, all right?
No, but John, that was a real thing last year. And we know we shouldn't discount it in Detroit. We know that.
We know that as well. And I know that as well. But Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave, who didn't have a great year last year, I think his feet have been put to the fire. He's been challenged. And if you read some of the clippings coming out of there, he understands that and wants to step up and play better. They lost some pass rushers, but what did they do? They went out and got Leonard Floyd, Yoder Gross-Matos. I love saying that one, too. It's like Le Fleur.
He's a Penn State guy.
Yoder Gross-Matos. He is a Penn State guy. But I think that they have addressed those injuries that they had. Now, the big question for me regarding the San Francisco defense is the injury to Greenlaw.
Yep.
I mean, how does that affect him? When is he back? How much of an impact does that have?
ACL, right?
I think it was an ACL, yeah.
So you'd think...
Was it ACL or was it Achilles?
Achilles is much worse, right? In terms of explosion coming back. We know it's really derailed careers.
Not as much
more
as
than
it
a
used
knee.
to. I don't know. I had an Achilles. Again, we're talking about different positions, and right. I think either one there, I would put them on equal ground.
So, but again, typically a year, but you can come back a little sooner with...
Sure.
So late in the season, maybe he comes back, but does he have his feet under him? Yeah, exactly.
I'm with Jim on this. I actually think it's the Eagles as well. And one thing I sensed here the last couple of weeks as we move into 2020, last year's not happening. Okay? This is the NFL. Last year doesn't happen. I truly believe the Niners have missed their window. And Christian McCaffrey turns 28. Well, how come
their Super Bowl window? Sure, I could live with that argument.
Well, the Lions are a Super Bowl threat.
Right, we both agree the Lions are at the top going into next season. Who's the biggest threat? He would say the Niners because they're still there. I would say the Eagles because I think they're a bigger threat for the upcoming season, and I think that's where I win you over.
Yeah, exactly. And they also have Jalen Hurts, and I think Jalen Hurts is a winner. Jalen Hurts is usually not denied. He's kind of proven that at virtually every level. Their slide last year was completely connected to Matt Patricia having more power and say. I think Sirianni's job is on the line this year, and I'm not quite sure if he's a great coach or good coach or not. He's a good coach, I guess. I mean, he went to a Super Bowl.
Sure. I
just think they have a better, younger, more well-rounded roster. I think the Niners are a little bit long in the tooth, and
well, I think it could blow up in the Eagles' face if the leadership thing is still a thing. They could absolutely have this blow up in their face. But I think
I think to me the big separator is coach.
Okay, if they put the right foot forward, though, I think we talk about rosters. I think people sleep on that roster in Philadelphia. Howie Roseman, one of the great GMs, they have a very good roster at a bunch of the key positions in the trenches at quarterback. So.
And I think the Ayuk thing's huge for the Niners. He had a big season last year.
Yeah.
And this went under the rug real quick. There were rumors at the draft of Samuel being on the block.
And they drafted 2 receivers.
Things don't start all that well out there, or they're just kind of meandering. And Debo's been known to go to social media and express his feelings. I feel like...
Yeah, but he got paid last year. And I don't think it's going to come from him. And let's just play the game that if Brendan Ayuk doesn't get paid, this is a team that is willing to make trades. They did it in terms of acquiring talent. So they went out there and they got Ricky Pearsall. Right? They drafted to be able to have something in case it doesn't work out with Brandon Ayuk. But in return, they can also get some assets back. And it may not be assets that are going to help them this year. I understand that, but they have other individuals that can fill that role.
I think the Niners will be a thorn in the Lions' side. They're not going away. They'll still be a threat. I think the Cowboys are a team that you got to go to Dallas. You're going to have to beat these teams. They don't face the Eagles in the regular season, but I think the Eagles are kind of slept on because they didn't perform well at the end of last year, but I think they're every bit the threat. I think they're the biggest threat.
What they go Niners 13-4 last year?
Yes.
Weren't they 13-4 the year before?
Maybe.
I think so, or close. 12-5, something like that.
Sure.
I mean, this is a team that's knocked really, really, really hard on winning a Super Bowl, and it hasn't happened. And also, just the fact they're a Super Bowl runner-up. History suggests it's not an absolute that Super Bowl runner-ups don't bounce back.
Who do you guys think the biggest threat is in the NFC? We'll take some ticket text. You want to jump in on the phones? We'll take those phone calls.